Hello, good morning, good evening, good night, wherever you may be on this fine planet. And today, I won't continue these with only horror movies. It's just, it's October. You know, it's just what you do. So that being said, today's movie we are going to be discussing is the wonderful movie from 1982, and it is called Slumber Party Massacre. Slumber Party Massacre revolves around a group of high school girls who throw a slumber party only to be stalked and brutally attacked by an escaped killer wielding a power drill. The killer, Russ Thorne, cuts through the group one by one in typical slasher fashion. As the bodies pile up, the remaining girls fight back in a tense finale. Slumber Party Massacre from 1982 is a slasher film that stands out in the genre for a variety of reasons, blending the tropes of horror with a unique feminist twist. Directed by Amy Holden Jones and written by Rita Mae Brown, the film was initially conceived as a parody of slasher films, but when it came time to film, it was played more as a straightforward horror film, though with some subtle satirical elements still intact. Despite being a B-movie with a low budget, it has become a cult classic thanks to its mix of humor, gore, and unconventional behind-the-scenes elements. Now, personally, I really enjoy this movie. I think it's one of the better 80s slasher films, especially for being like a film that was supposed to just like make fun of them. It actually turned out to be a pretty fun movie. And the score, which I own on vinyl, which is great, is done by Ralph Jones, if I remember correctly. Rita Mae Brown, an outspoken feminist and activist, originally wrote Slumber Party Massacre as a satire of the male-dominated slasher genre. The script pokes fun at how slasher films often objectify women and uses the classic final girl trope. However, the producers decided to play it straight, leaving the movie with an interesting blend of horror and unintended humor. This feminist perspective, even when toned down, remains an interesting talking point when compared to other slashers of the time. Just for an example, other horror movies that came out in 1982 were such films as John Carpenter's The Thing, Poltergeist, Creepshow, Friday the 13th Part 3, Basket Case, and Pieces. I mean, come on now. The 80s were such a great time for horror movies. Not that they're all good by any means, but there were a shit ton of very fun horror movies. Amy Holden Jones, who had previously worked as an editor on films like Taxi Driver, took on the director role in what was a rare instance of a woman helming a horror film at the time. Jones later went on to have a successful career as a writer and producer for films like Mystic Pizza and TV series like The Resident. Her direction in Slumber Party Massacre gives the film a distinctive edge, often playing with the male gaze and flipping the traditional horror elements on their head. Now let's talk about the infamous drill, the driller killer. Not that movie that we're talking about. We're talking about the weapon that is used in this movie by the stalker killer guy. One of the most iconic elements of the movie is the killer's weapon of choice, a massive phallic power drill. The drill's overt symbolism has been interpreted as a critique of male aggression and the fear of female empowerment. The fact that the killer wields such a ridiculous over-the-top weapon makes it both terrifying and darkly comedic, adding to the film's strange charm. When I first saw this movie when I was in my teens, I never watched this movie as like, oh, you know, female empowerment and stuff like that, and probably because I'm a guy. But I also just never try to put politics in my movies when I'm viewing them, especially nowadays. Watching this movie though, I just generally enjoyed it. I thought it was just a well done movie. I thought the score was fun. I thought the acting is fun. I thought it had a lot of comedic moments, but also like as a kid watching this movie, like the kills are awesome. There's some really cool fun kills in this movie, and just overall this movie is so much fun. The film was shot on a shoestring budget of $220,000, typical of the slasher genre during that era. Despite its low budget, the film makes effective use of its setting, utilizing tight spaces like hallways and closets to build suspense. This bare bones production style is part of what gives the movie its raw, gritty feel. Now, as we previously discussed in the Halloween video that I did, like back then, like 19, so let's usually, I mean, don't hold me to this, but usually a movie is made in like 19, let's use Slumber Party Massacre as an example. This movie was probably made in 1981 and then came out in 1982. So in 1981, $220,000 was almost like having close to $762,000. Once again, low budget movie, but at the end of the day, was it really a low budget movie? Shit, I can't even make something for $70,000 nowadays. And these these people are complaining about $700,000? Come on. Most of the cast consisted of unknowns or first-time actors, giving the film a naturalistic, almost amateurish feel that some fans believe adds to its authenticity. In true slasher fashion, the characters are developed just enough for the audience to invest in them before they're picked off by the killer. The performances range from campy to surprisingly genuine, a reflection of the film's uncertain tone between parody and horror. Slumber Party Massacre spawned 2 direct sequels. Slumber Party Massacre 2, which is like just a 180 of a movie. It's a lot of fun. If you collect 4K Blu-rays and stuff like that, Scream Factory put out a double disc of Slumber Party 1 and Slumber Party 2 on 4K, and they both look great, but also Slumber Party 2 is just a whole other beast of a movie that is just worth a whole other dive. And it also spawned a Slumber Party Massacre 3 in 1990, which I don't even think I wound up ever seeing now I'm thinking about it. I don't know. The second film takes a surreal turn, featuring a killer rock star with a guitar drill weapon, and has since gained its own cult following for its absurdity. Yes, it really is absurd. The original film remains beloved among horror fans and is considered one of the more unique slasher films of the 80s due to its balance of gore, satire, and feminist undertones. In 2021, a reboot was released, further cementing its legacy. I didn't like that remake. I'll go ahead and say it. I actually kind of forgot that there even was a remake of it. You know, it happens. It's not the first time this has happened. Though it features the classic slasher elements, scantily clad women, a silent killer, and bloody deaths, it subverts many of the genre's typical tropes. The film allows its female characters to fight back, challenging the idea that women are helpless victims in these kinds of stories. In fact, it's the women who band together to defeat the killer in the end, offering a refreshing change from the typical male savior narrative often found in slashers. Now, obviously, this isn't like a movie that widely known with like a lot of like facts or anything like that. However, this is pretty damn interesting. Amy Holden Jones made a bold decision to direct the film despite it being her first major directing gig. She famously turned down editing E.T. for the opportunity. It's pretty crazy. And also, it's pretty crazy too that both of these things that I have done now involve Steven Spielberg. This is the GOAT. Though the movie is often considered cheesy by today's standards, it stands out for being one of the few slasher films of the 1980s written and directed by women, offering a unique lens on the genre. Now, obviously, throughout the years, women have come and directed a lot of great horror movies. I mean, look at Catherine Bigelow with Near Dark, although I wouldn't really call that a horror movie, but it is one of the better, vampire movies out there, that's for damn sure. And then you also have Mary Lambert, who directed the original Pet Sematary. Great movie. And then later on in the 2000s, we have Karen Kusama, who has directed Jennifer's Body, The Invitation. Also, you got Rachel Talalay, who was a production assistant on like the OG, like the early years of Nightmare on Elm Street. And then she went on to direct Freddy's Dead, which is shamefully one of my favorites of the franchises. She also directed a really fun movie called Ghost in the Machine from the 90s. It was during a time when one of those, all those movies of like, tech's killing people, which nowadays we're doing with AI and how that can kill off people and stuff like that. Fun. So overall, Slumber Party Massacre is a prime example of how a low-budget, seemingly formulaic slasher film can stand in the test of time thanks to the unique vision of its creators and the sly way it both embraces and critiques the genre's most well-known conventions. So that's it for today's video. I mean, once again, really quick, coming in and out of these bad boys. Try to stay under 10 minutes. We ain't got time for that. We have things we gotta do. Maybe I'll do this again. I don't know. I'm just banging out a bunch of these and then I'll just post them for fun, maybe just for the month of October. I don't know. But anyway, maybe we'll do it again.